First, I want to talk about the president. The president was on with Wawa, Barbara Walters, right around Thanksgiving time, and he and Michelle gave a interesting interview there. And some of it was mushy, cushy stuff with the family, and I'm not going to say anything about Obama's family or his kids, but Michelle has become, quote, an advisor to the chief advisor as far as I have a couple of clips here with the two of them, and then a couple of clips of Walters with Obama one-on-one. And it's just interesting to hear these answers. And again, like Dion and like Durbin, I'm not sure they realize that the elections happened and that an earthquake happened, not just here in Minnesota and in the House, but all over the country. Democrats were defeated everywhere. And I just still think that they think their problem is a messaging problem, that they're just not saying the right words. And like I said a couple weeks ago, folks, they gotta go back to their think tanks and their focus groups and figure out what words to use to get their little message out. But I want you to listen to this first question. This is Walters with both Obamas talking about their reaction, and this is mostly Michelle here, their reaction to election night. Watch this.
So what did you say to him the night of November 2nd when he was, as he put it, shellacked?
I said, let's get to work. There's a lot to do. I think for us, it's always the focus on what we need to get done, the work ahead.
Now, keep in mind that election night, I think she went to sleep. So.
Did you really?
Well.
So your reaction to getting a shellacking, Mrs. Obama, is let's get to work. We've got a lot to do. Yeah, I agree. Repeal Obamacare, stop the rest of the stimulus, extend the tax cuts, get the federal government out of the public education business, which is, I'd take the Department of Education, throw it in the Potomac River. There's plenty to do. Not what you want, but there is plenty to do. Now, here is an embarrassing moment. And I don't take pleasure. A lot of people think I take pleasure in watching Democrats fail or watching the Obamas look like idiots. I don't take pleasure in it, folks. I'd like the President and the First Lady to be smarter than this. Here is their comments on what happens, the historical context here of midterm elections for a president. Here's their answer.
So you didn't care whether the Democrats took over the House?
Absolutely cared.
You had time to hear about it the next day.
It was going to be whatever it was going to be the next day. So I did go to sleep.
This man who was considered such a great communicator, what did he do wrong?
It's a tough time. My understanding is that, number one, every president in history has lost Congress at the midterms. Maybe that's overstating it, but it's happened for every president in my lifetime.
It's the norm.
It's the norm. But unemployment is high. Folks are hurting. There's nothing that I would look at in this year. I wouldn't look at not giving this country health care. I wouldn't want to take back any of the investments that we've made in education. So I think from a policy perspective, he's done an outstanding job.
She's a little biased.
What?
Just a tad.
You're lucky.
I'm here watching him.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the norm. Really? It's the norm? It's been the norm in Michelle Obama's entire lifetime. Well, the only way that's true, Mrs. Obama, is if you're about 7 years old. The House of Representatives has changed hands 3 times since 1950. Why do I have to educate the President and the First Lady? I'm happy to do it, but I mean, since 1954, it's changed hands 3 times. 1994, 2006, and 2010. That's the only times it's changed hands. When President Carter had midterms in 1978, the Democrats did not lose control of both houses. In 1982, when President Reagan was president, the Democrats controlled the House, the Republicans controlled the Senate. It was the same thing after the 82 elections. In 1990, George H.W. was the president. The Democrats had both houses. In 1988, they won both houses again in 1990. 2002, President Bush Jr. gained seats in the House, and the Republicans took control of the Senate. So where is this historical context here that it's the norm that this happened? And then notice the rest of it. Well, we still wouldn't change health care or our investments in education. Of course, every time the Democrats spend your money, they call it an investment. You do it, they tax you to death on it, but they do what? Why is it an investment? It's called government spending. It's called taking my money and putting it, planning to put it somewhere. It is not an investment. Again, I've said this many times, there's no correlation between money and a good education. So they wouldn't take back anything they've done. Well, the things you did are part of the reason you got beat. I mean, again, look, I don't expect them to disavow all this stuff, but it's almost like there's almost no acknowledgement that your policies, Mr. President and Mrs. First Lady, are a big reason why you lost. It's not just unemployment. Unemployment's critical, but it's not the central, it might have been the central reason, but there's other things, government spending, the tax rates, the things you haven't dealt with. There's plenty of reasons for people to be unhappy.